Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu had a clear message for his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken during their meeting in New York that Turkey's security concerns must be addressed when it came to Finland and Sweden's bid to join NATO. Ankara has accused the two Nordic countries of harboring suspected terrorists and refusing to extradite them back to Turkey. Also discussed during their meeting was a weapons deal that would see Turkey acquire dozens of new F-16 fighter jets and modernization kits for its existing fleet. Çavuşoğlu said earlier that talks to approve the deal were progressing positively. The potential sale is being seen as a substitution to the F-35 fighter jet, which the U.S. has refused to transfer to Turkey over its purchase of Russia's S-400 missile system. And when it came to the conflict in Ukraine, both Çavuşoğlu and Blinken reiterated their support for the country's territorial integrity. So, are Turkey and the U.S. starting to resolve their long-running differences? And will disagreements over Sweden and Finland's NATO bid play out between the two allies? And to discuss how the foreign ministers' meeting went, joining me now from Istanbul is former Turkish ambassador Oguz Celikkol. And from Washington, D.C., Michael Doran. He is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, specializing in Middle East security. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, Oğuz, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu has met with his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken as part of a strategic mechanism that the two countries set up in 2021. How has that meeting played out so far, and were there any breakthroughs?
It looks like, of course, there are many problems apparently between the United States and Turkey since from the Obama administration and the Trump administration, these problems pile up. So two ministers meeting is trying to solve these problems. It's not easy, of course, but it looks like it went quite well. And we are hoping that many of these problems could be solved in the due time. But there are many problems, of course, piling up since from the Obama administration and then the Trump administration.
Yes. So, Michael, both diplomats confirmed their country's commitment to deepen ties and enhance cooperation in the face of ongoing challenges. We know many of those challenges, but what areas could the two countries cooperate more?
I think there are a number of areas in which they can cooperate more. They can cooperate more on security in Europe, on Ukraine. They can cooperate more in Syria. But I think the atmosphere is changing here. It's important to recognize that. Changing in Washington. I think that's the big change. Mark Twain said, supposedly, that God created war in order to teach Americans geography. And the Ukraine war has reminded the United States of where Turkey sits on the map and how indispensable it is.
So, Oğuz, would you agree? I mean, has Russia's attack on Ukraine given both Turkey and the U.S. the urgency to look past their differences and address bigger and longer-term threats?
Yes, yeah, I agree completely, because now we are, many experts are talking about the beginning of a second Cold War with the Ukrainian situation, Russia attacking Ukraine. A new Cold War started in Europe, in our region. So that is increasing Turkey's geostrategical importance. And I agree that I spent many times in the United States. And unfortunately, that time I knew from that time that Americans usually forget how Turkey played a vital role in the first Cold War.
Yes.
And now we are entering a second Cold War era, and Turkey's contribution probably will be appreciated by the United States. I agree.
So, Michael, how has President Biden's letter asking Congress to approve a new weapons deal with Turkey been met among the U.S. lawmakers? You just mentioned the mood is changing in the Capitol. How so?
Well, that's a great example. That letter did not did not receive the immediate and categorical condemnation that one would have expected just a few months ago. So it's impossible for those of us who are not inside the government, having discussions between the White House and Capitol Hill, to understand exactly where the discussion is. But it's clearly the ice is broken and things are moving and people are getting creative on both sides, on the Turkish side, but especially on the American side.
So is Congress ready to approve a Turkish request to acquire like 40 new F-16 fighter jets?
My best guess is that yes, that this is happening, but it's a guess. I have to emphasize that we're going to have to see how this unfolds. But like I say, the ice is breaking.
So, Oğuz, another, maybe the latest issue of contention between Turkey and the U.S. is Turkey's unfavorable approach to Finland and Sweden's bid to join NATO. Where is this headed? And are we likely to see a possible bottleneck if this agreement continues to drag on? This agreement.
Yes, well, Turkey many times repeatedly repeated it's not it is supporting the enlargement of NATO, as a matter of fact. But first of all, I would like to point out that it is not the first time a member is blocking a membership of another European country into in the NATO alliance.
Yes.
Greece, for example, 10 years blocked Macedonians' membership in NATO for cultural reasons, not for security reasons. And the pressure was on Macedonia, and at the end, after 10 years, Macedonia was forced to change its name. And then it was allowed to enter into NATO alliance.
So Oğuz, why do you think everyone is so surprised or acting surprised?
I think they are acting surprised because, we know in the foreign ministry, because Turkey's fight against terrorism started in the 70s. PKK and fight against the PKK started in the early 80s. Many governments change came and gone in Turkey since that time. But Sweden never cooperated with Turkey against the terrorist organizations.
Yes. So
never returned back even a single terrorist that Turkey wanted.
Mm-hmm. So, Michael, U.S. National Security Advisor Sullivan has told reporters that the U.S. officials are confident that Turkey's concerns can be addressed. Why are they so confident, and how Turkey's concerns will be addressed moving forward?
Well, I think that the Turkish opposition to Sweden and Finland is a kind of double-barreled opposition. Turkey has an agenda with Sweden and Finland for sure, but it has the biggest agenda is with the United States. Mm-hmm. And the biggest problem on Turkey's southern border is U.S. support for the PKK, which is coming in the form of military assistance. And I think that there's now, you opened by asking where can we see some movement forward? I'm expecting to see greater creative thinking between the Turks and the Americans about the southern border. And I suspect that that's what the National Security Advisor Sullivan is thinking as well, that if the United States can begin a process of accommodation of Turkey's concerns on the southern border, then we can see more flexibility in the Turkish position regarding Sweden and Finland. So
also talking about creative thinking, could lifting an arms embargo on the Turkish defense industry and halting support for the PKK-YPG terror organization be a possibility now?
First of all, yeah, I mean, Turkey may change its position, of course, in the coming weeks, months. But first of all, Sweden have to change its position. As I told you, and the United States probably, we are talking about, of course, all West attitude towards Turkey's fight against the terrorist organizations, including the Syria PKK affiliates working in Syria, YPG. Turkey has been complaining about this to all our neighbors, including United States, and that has to be changed. As long as that change, I think Turkey's attitude will also change.
So, Michael, do you believe that Turkey's concerns are really being heard and understood by these two NATO candidates now?
I think that ears in Washington are open in a way that they haven't been open before. For years, when Turks came with complaints, which in my own personal view were quite legitimate, they were not heard. They were not heard. The ears were closed. So now they're open, and people are listening, and they're thinking about how to handle it. As the ambassador said at the beginning, there are many problems, and it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of goodwill, and a lot of creativity to get over them. But I'm more optimistic today than I've been in 5 years.
Oz, Turkey is now accused of being a spoiler here. What interest does Turkey have in blocking the two countries' memberships since it backs NATO's open door policy? What's the contradiction here?
Many times, I think, Turkish authorities said that they are supporting the open door policy of NATO. But we want also something from our NATO allies and two candidate countries to support, first of all, Turkish fight against terrorism, especially in Syria and Iraq, because now Turkey has a strategy not to fight PKK in Turkish territories. That fight almost won, but now PKK is settled in Iraq and Syria, and our allies' support for PKK and PKK affiliates, YPG, in Syria is hampering that policy, first of all. And there are, of course, open and sometimes closed arms embargo against Turkey. And that is not acceptable also. First of all, we would like to change the attitude of two candidate states. Unfortunately, as I pointed out, Sweden never cooperated with Turkey in almost 50 years. Fight against Turkish terrorism. I probably refer this to sympathy that Swedish governments feel the objectives of terrorist organizations, and the Swedish probably arrogance. Yes. And this has to be changed.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.